I can see all the abuse. Oh yes, of course, it includes Mr. John Honeyball, who's pretending that he's in a posh lounge at Heathrow, but I think we all know that he's in some sort of dodgy Pret.
He's in the Costa at Luton.
Yeah, exactly.
YouTube says we have excellent connection, which I think is possibly the first time in living memory. So there we go. Right, we're on.
Everyone
as far as I'm
is
concerned.
looking sharp. Thank you, Ninja. All right, so do we have to speak? I think otherwise there's just this embarrassing silence, isn't there?
Not contractually for at least another 2 minutes.
No.
I think yours is the most featured staircase in a podcast in the world, by the way, Lee. It's always good to have a staircase. They're not featured enough.
But this is true, except the one that Harry Potter lived under. I guess that I'm probably second to that. But yeah, it's just unfortunately the way I have to do these things. But of course, this will all be changing soon. So who knows where I will be? Oh, very briefly, my wife is having a change of careers, which will mean a change of house, and that is all I know.
Might want to get a bit more detail on that, mate.
There is no more detail to have.
Is she going? No, but is she going from like nursing into like a motorcycle gang? You can't just leave us with this change of career.
That's exactly what she's going from international drug running into basically pole dancing. So it's really hard to see where this is going to land.
You may have to clean up your act for when your wife does actually start this career, because you could get her struck off within seconds of this.
Well, no, they're hiring her, not me, which is a really good job.
You're still part of it. I've read Agatha Christie novels.
Their vetting is expensive these days.
Oh no, I've been interviewed.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
But she still got the job.
Before she got the gig, they interview me.
Wow.
I once had to. One of my colleagues went into the Secret Services, and I had to do a vetting interview, and it was extraordinary. I'm not going to give any more than that away in motion. I've signed the act, but it was that was quite something.
Okay. Oh, it's very nearly 1 o'clock.
It is very nearly 1 o'clock.
All right. Have we been getting any grief from our podcasters?
Always.
I would have thought so. Daylight.
Yeah, what I should do.
It's spicy. Let's do it.
Yes, Ninja Nurse, I will have to go with my wife to change house.
Have you remembered the Mag promo, Tim?
No.
Well, given it's on sale today, I thought you might want to mention it at some point.
Okay.
Right, I make it 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Best of British, everyone.
Thanks, Lee. Hello, welcome to the PC Pro podcast. What are we? It is the 3rd of April 2025. I think we can be very grateful it's not April Fool's Day. Although I do have some... No, they're not fools. They're lovely people, full of cleverness and sentiment and wit. And the first of those is Roshni Humour.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Rosh. The second one, and I use wit with some trepidation, is Barry Collins.
Hello, Tim.
And then finally, I use wit fully redacted. It's Lee Grant.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, I think we should talk about some technology stories, and we're going to kick off with you, Barry.
Yes, we're starting off with the hilarious topic of email encryption. So this is Gmail, or Google, who announced earlier this week that corporate users of Gmail are going to get a new end-to-end encryption system. And there is some debate over it's really end-to-end encrypted, but let's shuffle along for the meantime. So basically what's going to happen is Google is going to give you the option to encrypt all of the emails you send out from your corporate Gmail account. And this will take effectively 3 forms. One, if you're sending to your colleagues within the same workspace, you can
to me, Barry, you're going to send an email to me. I'm on the same system. What happens then?
Then, as long as your IT team have ticked the box that says encrypt all messages, that will be fully encrypted. And because you're both on Gmail, Bob's your dad's brother. Everything's fine. If you are sending to another Gmail account, that will also be encrypted. And whether that's a corporate Gmail account or consumer Gmail account, They can also encrypt that message. That will come in some weeks, according to Google, who rolled out its service earlier this week. And the final step will be if you're sending to non-Gmail users. So if you use Outlook, for example, to collect your emails like I do, then Google will encrypt those messages too, but it's using a slightly strange way of doing it. So instead of receiving the email as is and reading it in Outlook as normal, you'll have to click on a message that says, Tim Danton sent you an encrypted message. Click here to view the message. And when you click to view that message, you'll be sent, first you'll be asked to log into a sort of temporary Google Workspace account, and then you'll be able to view the message on the server. So it's making life a bit awkward, I'd say, for people who are not part of the Gmail family. The other potential issue here, of course, is that if you get a message saying, hey, Tim sent you a message, click here to read it, there's a good chance you're going to click it. And that is a bit of a phishing risk, because it obviously won't take long if this system does take off, and it looks like it will, that the phishers and the fraudsters are going to be all over it. And so determining between messages that are genuinely from Google and those that aren't are going to be a challenge. And as much as encrypted email sounds like a great thing, there's obviously a security threat there if people end up stealing your credentials by opening what looks like a genuine encrypted email. So encrypted email of a sort, as long as you're in the Gmail family, basically.
All right. Yeah. And so where do you land, Barry? Because in the article you wrote about this, you said security boost or phishing nightmare. So answer that question for us, please.
Well, I just think it's a bit of a, I mean, they're not the only ones to do this. I should have pointed out in that article, by the way, that Microsoft have got a similar system going on themselves. But this idea of having to click into and then log into a separate system just to read an email from somebody, that strikes me as quite inconvenient and a pain in the backside. But yeah, I think it is a real security threat, because we all get a ton of spam messages every day, and anyone can fall for it. There was a great piece last week, I don't know if you saw, that the guy behind the Have I Been Pawned website himself got attacked by a phishing attack, and wrote a nice blog saying, look, it was 2 o'clock in the morning after a long flight and whatever, and I was stupid and I fell for it. So anyone can fall for it. And
I fell for one this morning. It was a stupid one because it was a tax one, and I don't know why. I didn't even look at the link. And as soon as I saw the URL come up, I thought, oh god. And hopefully I haven't caused myself any problem. But it is, as you say, Barry, very, very easy. Even the cleverest people in the world, such as I don't know, whoever, fall for it.
And there's a reader called John Honeyball on the Discord who says, what's wrong with standard certificates for email? Nobody wants to deliver it. It should be a one-click for Office 365. I completely agree, but as John says, it's not. It's, I had to do encrypted emails in Outlook for a client a couple of years ago, and it was an absolute pain in the backside to set up. And, until they make true end-to-end encryption much simpler for a whole host of email clients, then I think we're going to end up with sort of ham-fisted solutions like this. And I'm not sure this is the great breakthrough that Google perhaps thinks it is.
So I was very, very tempted when you said ham-fisted to immediately turn over to Lee, but in fact I'm going to go to Roche, because I'm sure, Roche, you've got some opinions on this.
I do. So I think any stride that we're making towards making email safer is only for the good. 88% of targeted cyber attacks still coming via this way. This is the primary way that bad guys, the criminals, will lay the groundwork so when you look at an attack, there's 3 phases. You've got preparation, execution, and exfiltration. So the way that they prepare is typically through phishing, but it's also the way that they execute on it. And if we can just turn the dial, and not every email will have to be encrypted, and you won't be expecting a lot of email, but we can't sit and do nothing. So I laud Google's efforts to make this safer, and it's also consistent, I think, with their longer term policy. By the way, not paid by Google yet. But
are you pitching? Are you going to be nice to every single company from this point onwards?
Always be pitching too. Yeah, so I know I do. I think it's I think the strides are really important. Anything to dial it down. And I'll say this for like making mistakes, people make mistakes, agencies make mistakes. NSA made huge mistakes when they had Snowden. FBI made mistakes with what was it, like a guy called Robert Harris, MI6, MI5, GCHQ. They've all made mistakes. Just this week there was a guy up the country got done for taking his work home with him from GCHQ. So mistakes were made and no one's perfect. This is a step in the right direction, I think.
And what impact do you think it's going to have on your life, Lee, in terms of people walking into the shop and all that kind of thing?
Mercifully, because I don't deal with corporate customers, I expect it to have no impact at all. But it does remind me very much of the old XP days where, to view this video, download Real Player 5. And there was a malware-powered car crash coming around the corner where they downloaded heaven knows what from heaven knows where. So I'm very alert to what Barry is saying about the phishing potentials here, particularly when Google's message says, make sure you trust the sender and their identity provider. And at what point I said to myself, what's an identity provider? And I've done this for a few years and it's not a phrase that I know, but maybe this will be the impetus to sort of shake up some of the email client providers and just make this a lot easier. So it does work out of the box, for someone like Thunderbird or Safari to sort of switch it on. And because the more of a pain in the bum it is for people to do it, the worse it is going to get. And inevitably Google will get a bit of flack for that, unfairly or not, but hopefully they'll just make this seamless quickly. Ha ha ha.
You do raise, I think it's not entirely to do with this story, but that perennial frustration where people use terminology that no one else understands in error messages. And what was it? Identity provider? Who the hell goes around talking about identity provider? Say what the hell you actually mean.
Sounds like it's been written by Gemini, Tim.
Well, yeah, but it's just no. That people use such opaque language in error messages, and you actually in your column, I think this month or maybe last month, the new issue, by the way, is out today. Barry just reminded me to give it a plug, so thank you for that, Barry. I just now need to remember what's on the front of it. So yes. Oh, are you going to do a kind of thing? Anyway, in Lee's column this month, I'm pretty sure you did mention this, and just the blue screen of death and how very, very unhelpful it is.
Yeah, I certainly remember writing that. I'm not entirely sure where we are in the chain, but yeah, basically it is absolutely useless. It occasionally throws you an error message which might be vaguely right, and yeah, after all these years of Microsoft doing this, you would think it leaves so much to guesswork and there's so much it can work out, and it just doesn't give you the information. It is poor.
Yeah, I know. We're 2025. 2025 is where
Absolutely.
we are. Pete, AI can generate images of pretty much anything you can conceive, and a lot you can't conceive, and many of it six-fingered, and yet we can't do this very simple thing of actually just solving people's basic problems. Man, I feel myself getting angry. This is probably what it's like being at Barry all the time, feeling upset about things. All right. Let's move
speechless.
Yeah, Barry's never speechless. Okay, Donkey Kong. I think we have not in this podcast we have not talked about Donkey Kong enough. You okay,
so
Lily?
We have not. That is all about to change. But this is a hotly anticipated decision coming out of the Brisbane courts, bringing you live. No, not live. Okay, so this is the story. It's brilliant. Where do I start? Oh, I first of all have to introduce you. So if you haven't been hotly anticipating it, I'm going to need to introduce you to the cast of characters. They are, I am not joking, Judge Ken Barlow.
Nice.
The claimant, Billy Mitchell. We have another character called Apollo Legend. And then we have the defendant, who's got a rather ordinary name of Carl Jobst. So what happens? So if you read the story, you have to traipse through allegations of cheating. So Billy Mitchell, who's the claimant in the case, was accused of cheating back in 2017. He was accused of using an arcade simulator in violation of the rules when he was doing the speed competition for Donkey Kong and for Pac-Man. And what happened then was that he had those titles withdrawn. What was it called? Oh, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah, but it's
anyway, the
those
two
it's the speed running things, isn't it? Where
it's the
people
speed
go.
running things.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so then it was Twin Galaxies and the Guinness Book of Records withdrew his titles for, for these esports achievements. Now, I could do a half hour on why it shouldn't be called esports, but it should be called e-games. But we only have an hour.
Hey, be careful because you're moving into is darts a sport territory, and
Darts is a sport.
sorry.
Please, darts is a sport. But it's not a sport, man. No way. No, you can't call yourself a gamer and then say you're doing esports. No, you're doing e-games. Listen, I'm probably part of a very small cohort of people who care about this. So, before we lose all of our listeners, I'll just move on. Where was I? Yeah. So even though you have to read through all of this nonsense about cheating, actually what ended up happening was that Twin Galaxies reversed their decision, as did the Guinness Book of Records. So it absolutely has nothing to do with any allegations about cheating. What it does have to do is that the defendant of the case, Carl Jobst, got on YouTube and he said that Billy Mitchell had, what did he say he had done? He said that he had contributed to Apollo Legends' suicide, that Billy Mitchell, when he had sued him, had won $1 million in damages and something else. But there was like five serious defamation. Judge Ken Barlow was having absolutely none of this. I know, it's brilliant.
Are you sure you didn't get this on April the 1st?
Yeah. Also, it is like EastEnders versus Coronation Street, isn't it?
Isn't it?
The Mitchell
it's like
brothers.
A matchup between Rocky, EastEnders. Now that you say it, no, because you know what? There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff out there. But you're right. Now the horror. Can you imagine? I'm repeating this. Anyway, there's about 300,000, 400,000 Australian dollars. And the judge said that if Billy Mitchell had asked for more than $50,000, he would likely have got it. But that's what he asked for, so that's what he got. He got 300,000 for non-economic loss, and he also got the interest on it. And that is the defamation Donkey Kong case.
Defamation Donkey Kong, which actually is a new game coming out soon. Barry, whose side are you on for this one?
I'm not sure I even understand it, but I have nothing to say, Your Honour. Your witness.
Okay, on to witness number 2, Mr. Lee Grant.
I'm a bit like Barry. I think this is interesting. It reminds me of a case involving someone called Todd Rogers, which is a bit like Ted Rogers if we're carrying on with this TV thing. Todd Rogers is a name some of you might know. He claimed many high score games and these speedrunning world records, including one that dates back to 1982, which is the Activision game Dragster for the Atari 2600, programmed by David Crane, as it happened. Now, he claimed to have this top score of 5.51 seconds, which no one else was ever quite able to get. And this remarkable score, he became a bit of a celeb on the gaming circuit, including is it Twin Galaxies that Roche mentioned. He also got into the Guinness Book of Records and things like that. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the rest of that. Google Todd Rogers and Dragster, and you'll find countless films which document what happened next and why the records were rescinded.
Oh, Lee, you've got to do some sort of summary. Are you worried about the legal side? Because we've got a lawyer here.
Okay.
It's a full defence. And if it's reasonably held and it's not reckless, shoot, my friend, go.
No,
Because I'll tell you why. Because if it's because if it's already published and there hasn't been any kind of a retraction or any move by the person who's involved to have it brought down, then you're on safe ground.
Well, Mr. Rogers, I don't believe has ever been to court. So all I can say is there are plenty of different YouTube content. You can take that with what you like, where basically people have taken apart the Dragster game and basically said the quickest you can get out of this thing is 5.57. And there's all sorts of implications about how involved he was with the organisations that sort of protect these world records and things like that. So, and there was lots of other games where he had like 1,000 times the highest score that anyone else had ever got. It's all very, very interesting, but there's some really sort of deep dive stuff out there. But as for any legal things, I couldn't possibly say.
Okay, I'm going to do a couple of quick plugs first. To join us at pcpro.link/discord. And I'll tell you the reason why to join us. It's because then you can read the comments from Ninja Nurse. So we were just talking about esports, weren't we? And Ninja said, "Oh, don't start. I used to go out as a professional tennis player. It didn't work out. There's no passion. Love meant nothing to her. This is the gold which you're losing just by listening to this podcast." I'm looking at Barry's face. I thought he was going to say something, but all he did.
I was just trying to work out the joke, but yeah, I got there in the end.
What do you mean you're trying to work out the joke? Have you never watched?
Well, it's all about delivery, Tim. I wasn't sure that was delivered quite.
Is that a tennis pun?
Yeah, it's all about how it was served. Anyway, so the other thing I'll just say is, Barry, we already mentioned this month's issue, so I'm just going to say quickly that it is out. It does have the 8 best AI generators on the top. 8 best AI image generators, right, sitting at the top, including a lovely image of a cat licking ice cream. That in its own, I think, is worth watching, worth buying the magazine for. And there's also a lovely deep dive onto the processor technology, if you are interested in such things. You can read my review of the Asus ZenBook Joy 2025 as featured in a previous podcast, and also the Dell Pro Premium, not featured in a previous podcast, but also quite an interesting laptop. And Barry's lovely feature about, well, we call it hacking Windows, but I suppose that's a slightly tabloidy kind of line. But, you know, we want people to buy the magazine. Barry, what's so great about that feature?
It wasn't my headline I'm adding on here. It's about effectively customizing Windows in different ways using either downloadable apps or...
You see, that doesn't have the ring to it, does it, Barry? Customizing Windows in various downloadable ways. You know, who's going to buy that? Who's going to pick that one up? Hack Windows, on the other hand, oh man, I'm racing out to buy that magazine. Sorry, do carry on.
Smashing Windows.
What
Sorry?
Windows?
Better.
Smashing Windows.
Smashing Windows.
Like,
Polishing, maybe.
Polishing Windows.
George Formby.
I feel that I may have led us down a bit of a rabbit hole here. Briefly, Barry, sell the feature. Why is it so fantastic?
Well, I was trying to, and some idiot interrupted me. But it's about different apps that you can use to customize Windows in various ways. Or Nick's done some lovely add-ons in which ways you can customize it just using default tools. It's very good. Despite
very good.
appearances.
Is it? In fact, the whole magazine. I think we should just put it on the front of the magazine. It's really good. Just buy it.
Yeah.
Wrap it in kind of plain brown paper, like we lived in a communistic society.
No. It gives absolutely no.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. Okay. So instead of that, let's talk about the third story, which is with you, Lee.
Yeah, last week's show we briefly talked about LibGen, which is the Library Genesis project, described on Wikipedia for safety as a shadow library. So basically this is an online repository of digital media, including books, which are normally paywalled or access controlled or otherwise not readily accessible. Now, when The Atlantic created a tool for authors to see if their books were in LibGen, some famous names became increasingly dismayed to find that their latest moneymakers were available for free on the internet.
Barry Collins.
Well, and you as well, Tim. And Nicole and everyone else, frankly, has ever been associated with PC Pro and written a book. LibGen isn't new, and it's been rattling around the UK legal system for a few years in various things. So authors are sort of really quite used to this sort of stuff. It doesn't make it right. But this story only became really newsworthy when it was discovered that Meta had used LibGen to train its AI. And a few online commentators put it, Meta could probably defend itself against accusations of theft, but probably not against handling stolen goods. Now, this week, some very prominent authors, including people like Val McDermott, Kazuo Ishiguro, Tom Stoppard, Joanne Harris, wrote a letter to the government asking them what the heck they were going to do about it. And as you would expect from a bunch of angry authors, this letter delivers. I'll put a link in the show notes later, and do take a moment to enjoy it. And basically, in essence, they state that scraping authors' work for generative AI training is unlawful in the UK, and that tech giants like Meta are operating without sufficient inquiry being made into their practices and those of their parent companies. Val McDermott told The Guardian, "I'm a crime writer. I understand theft when I see it, And by using pirated material, Meta are stealing from us twice over. I don't think it's all surprising that we're outraged. Everyone's favourite co-host Richard Osmond said, copyright law is not complicated at all. If you want to use an author's work, you need to ask permission. If you use it without permission, you're breaking the law. It's simple. Authors are demanding that the government act, as authors are essentially powerless to do anything about this themselves. They're also not particularly enamoured with the government's previous proposals to grant copyright exemptions for AI training. That's been knocked back at the moment, mainly due to the House of Lords, but there is a general consensus that this will be back on the table at some point. There is a letter going in today from the Guild of Great Britain, the Writers Guild of Great Britain. They're shoving a load of letters in. Gail Renard, a BAFTA award-winning writer, has published her letter on Blue Sky, asking basically Mr. Zuckerberg to pay her for her work. And she also states, for the future, you ask before taking, with an opt-in option easily available for authors, and not a snatch and grab model you're currently using. So, in the UK, people are very upset at the moment.
Yes, and one of them is John Honeyball. So I know John is listening to us and currently sitting in his executive lounge having a massage. But the
massage seats in the M25 service station.
So that's exactly what I mean. He's just trying to put a positive spin on it. But I know he said that if the EU was smart, they would use to solve my copyright AI issue as a big stick against the USA, very targeted and impossible to refute. A good response to the tariffs, which we shall not go into at this point. What do you think about that point, Roche?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's theft. So, okay, so Lee started off by saying it was theft or dealing with stolen property. It is absolutely, this is plain vanilla theft. And they knew, so there was a WhatsApp group where it's clear that they knew what they were doing was dishonest. So there's a couple of elements, without turning this into like criminal law 101, but there's a couple of elements that you need. Dishonestly appropriates property belonging to another with the intention to permanently deprive. If you treat it as your own, that then fits within that. So they're treating it as their own and they're pushing out their own product on that. Property, intellectual property is property. Dishonestly, you only have to read the WhatsApp. I think that they should be pursued. I think that we shouldn't have a two-tier system. If somebody steals, whether it's a corporation or whether it's an individual, they should be held to the same standard. And if people think that's naive, I don't think it's naive. I think it's precisely the right thing to do, and it's exactly the way that we should push forward with this. And I think everyone is right to be incandescent. And I hope that they don't lose the fire in their belly that they're feeling now to pursue this with the vigor that it should be pursued. And by the way, the Prime Minister was the Director of Public Prosecutions for years. So he will either know or he ought to know that this is plain vanilla theft, and he should look to protect our nation's businesses. Sorry, as if I'm standing on a soapbox, but, the safety of our nation is part and parcel with how our businesses can stay safe and how we can generate and monetize the brains that we have on this island. And for an American company to come in and strip out loads of stuff that had been stolen anyway. So the LibGem thing, that's known to be a platform, that all of that stuff ended up on that platform being stolen, and then they just re-stole it.
Yeah.
It's just, but I'm not surprised, by the way, Zuckerberg, man. I've said this before. If he looked like Monty Burns off The Simpsons, everyone would understand he's just a really bad character. But he looks like Doogie Howser. So it's like, oh, he wears Converse. Stop, people. He's in a t-shirt and he wears Converse. He's bad like Monty Burns. There.
Wow.
I've said
Okay.
it.
So
Stand down, Honeyball. I've got your back.
I'm just trying to work. What shoes do you wear, Barry?
What the hell is this?
Well, are you a Converse kind of guy?
Not really, no.
I've got a pair. I bought a pair of Converse trainers once, and they've never fitted me. So that's something I deeply regret. Anyway, sorry, Barry. The real question for you is whether you feel as passionately about this as Roche does.
Oh, probably not. No, but
I'd say, judging by that groan, which sounded quite resigned, definitely not.
Yeah, and this came across my radar when Lee pinged me a couple of weeks ago saying your book's on this list. And so the first thing I said, well, what kind of action's been taken here? And of course, in America, a class action suit's already underway. And over here, various author societies are getting angry by writing online petitions. It's like, oh, come on. Until someone actually takes them out with a huge financial penalty, they're going to keep doing this kind of stuff. And so I hope there are legal suits over here. But I very much doubt it's going to lead anywhere, to be honest, even in the States. But, let's see.
I mean, you do raise an interesting point about the individuals versus the agencies, Roche, and how basically if and it's that old thing, isn't it? And what was that that novel about from the turn of the 20th century, the ragged trousered philanthropist, I think it was. Anyway, that talked about the birth of unions in a kind of a novelistic way, and anyone who is part of a union and has achieved something will know how much more powerful you are by having a unified voice. So you talked about that Writers Guild. It sounds like something from Harry Potter, by the way. But how much power does that really have, Lee, compared to, let's say, Unison?
I think as Barry said, the authors on their own can't do a lot, so they've got to get together. So there are lots of different people sort of all saying the same thing, lots of different groups saying the same thing. In America, you've got the Society of Authors. They sort of flagged all this in January. Meta sort of actually gave a response to them saying, we hardly disagree with what you're saying. We're going to protect AI for all. And then in the EU, you've got this AI Act, which has really left this gaping hole where training AI systems is not covered under the copyright stuff. So, they were also then going to follow that up with something called the AI Liability Act, which was going to plug this hole. But curiously, that was thrown in the bin one day after J.D. Vance called for tea and crumpets. So it's really not hard to see why creative industries feel that they're not being listened to at all. So they've got to try and sort of part their differences. And one thing I've not talked about at all, because I've focused on early books, if any of you know the computer game Genshin Impact, there is a huge fight going on at the moment with their voice actors and contracts and AI generation from voices. And we haven't got time to get into that because it'll go on for weeks. And the infighting that is going on that, because none of them can decide whether it's Tuesday, never mind about whether they're being ripped off. It really is divide and conquer. You feel for people in the creative industries. I've got family in the creative industries that are have lost a lot of work in a very short space of time, and it's not funny when AI comes for your lunch, because there's more and more of us, and it's going to come for our lunch.
Okay, I'm going to have to get you on repetition there, Lee. So I'm going to have to pass the floor over to Roche, because he's looking quite angry.
So just to be really clear, so there's both a criminal wrong and a civil wrong, and so number one, whatever the Writers Guild do separately, and maybe they'll pursue them in a class action, that's up to them. But this is also a crime, right? And so this should trigger somebody that Lee quoted, I think it was mentioned a smash and grab, and this is exactly what it is. You can drive a truck into Waterstones and fill it up with 100 books and then drive off. Nobody. Going to go into your house, Tim, and then take a book off the shelf and walk out the door. This is theft, but it's theft on a scale that's almost unimaginable. And our government needs, and our government and our police force and our Crown Prosecution Service need to sit down and start to take this stuff seriously, because if we're going to allow any nation to come in and start stealing our stuff, you'll end up with, I don't know what, maybe the Chinese making a lookalike Land Rover. I say that because that's what they did. They called it the Wind Rover. We can't, there has to be a line in the sand. And when they've taken so much intellectual property belonging to so many people in this, on our small island, people should be incensed. By the way, that's like taxpayers' money. Just, man, they're worth absolute billions. It would be nothing for them to pay these people properly.
Okay, I'm going to hand the conch to Barry, who again is looking angry.
Well, just William Kirk, who's one of our regulars, in fact, we should call him Bill, says that the ALCS has 120,000 members. That's the Authors Licensing and Collecting Society. And actually, I think they could be a way out of this in terms of licensing these works. So the ALCS basically works by paying royalties to authors and journalists for contributions they've made, and libraries pay every time someone photocopies books and rents out books and whatever, and we get a cut of that once every March. Those of us who own their own copyright get a small slice of the pie, and that could be a way out for a settlement for this, in terms of the AI companies have to pay into that fund, and the money basically gets divided by how much you've contributed each year. It'd be good to see something like that in place for these AI usage.
Yeah, and the framework exists, the organisation exists, so I agree with you.
But whatever it is, it should be punitive, because they didn't negotiate this before they took the property. You know, it's like, where does all of this stop?
Yeah.
We
And
can't. You simply can't permit huge companies stealing property. That's what they did. Facebook, Meta, with Zuckerberg at the top. And by the way, the Winklevoss brothers will tell you he's got form for theft, right? That's their claim. It's just, I'm astonished that more people aren't outraged by it.
Yeah, well, the other thing, so I'm not astonished that people aren't outraged, just because people tend to kind of be very much focused on themselves, what they're doing every day. So, why worry about this huge issue which only has a very tangential, impact upon your life? However, I do think this is what the governments are there for. They are there to act on our behalf as our elected representatives. And those are the people, I think, really, who you could accuse of being effectively asleep at the wheel. You could argue, even since the birth of the internet, the birth of the World Wide Web, at least. So that's where I would point my finger of blame.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week that there's a concept called digital exceptionalism, where basically it's where the tech industry is given a free pass on all sorts of things that other industries wouldn't be given a free pass. I know it mainly from environmental issues, but we are starting to see it in AI and data rights and privacy. Because it's tech, we've always gone, oh, it's tech, we need to do it, without anyone having to go, no, hang on, that's not right, and we need to look at that more.
Go on, Rush.
Sorry, yeah, no, but he's absolutely right. And so this is the thing: we don't need provisions in the AI Act. We don't need new act. We have it in the Theft Act 1968, sections 1 to 5. There you go. And if you want to then sort of drive home the stolen property, I think that's like section 22. We don't need more.
I will be
We have
checking this
enough.
afterwards.
Yeah, and by the way, Chancellor Reeves is looking like she's casting her eye around, looking to try and make money anywhere. Excuse me, they have deep pockets. Start with that, and then you could have them for, okay, so now you have to have a civil solution so that all of these authors get what they deserve, and more, because there should be something punitive. Then there should be a fine because they're a corporation and they have stolen stuff. And then there should also be another amount of money that goes, because if we have to pursue these cases, we need to have the resources to be able to do that, and we should get that from Meta.
Okay, well, I'm with you, Roche. Can I give you 10p or something to contribute towards the seed fund for this? I think you should definitely be leading the charge. Okay. Let us move. Oh no! Actually, before we move, Lee, do you mind just talking to me briefly? We touched upon fashion already, and I think it's only natural for you to mention H&M, as you often do in our conversations.
It's never far away from our lips, Tim. Yeah, just to sort of, I guess, slightly tangent off this subject. Fashion retailer H&M wants to create some digital H&M. It's like H&M, but yeah, I got it a bit wrong. By the time I've edited it, you won't even know I made that mistake. So, fashion retailer H&M wants to create digital twins of 30 of its models. These are to be used for social media and marketing posts, only if permission is given by the models. Now, these adverts will be watermarked to signify the use of AI. Now, H&M, the great brand H&M, they're basically saying at the moment it's a bit of an experiment, and they will say they have said that the models retain rights over the digital replicas. And their use and where it's used and things like that. So, and one muggle that the BBC spoke to, I don't know what's happened to these teeth, a lady called Matilda, and I'm not even going to say her surname because I'm absolutely going to mess it up given the previous two paragraphs. Matilda basically spoke to the BBC, and she says she uses her AI twin really quite effectively because it allows her to take on a lot more work and avoid travel. It actually, as a concept, it really works for her. The slight downside about this, and we were talking about unions a second ago, is Equity, the Actors Union, or what we know as the Actors Union. They also represent fashion models, and they've told the BBC that there's increasingly models are being made to, or trying to be told to sign contracts which deny them any rights of ownership and compensation. So there's a system that can work, but people are not being allowed to go with it. But H&M are trying to see if this sort of thing could have a future.
Sorry, which company?
I've no idea. I've forgotten.
Okay. Yeah, it is fascinating. And there is actually, unfortunately, no, I'm not even going to say it because I've forgotten the name of it. But I've heard that Tom Hanks's view on this is, fine. Let you create a digital twin of me, but, just pay me. So as long as there's recompense built in, it's okay. But as you say, it does get more complicated when you get other people such as Equity involved. Right, here is today's big surprise. Lay on that drum roll sound effect, because it turns out the BBC has it wasn't the BBC. It's a Norwegian survey has discovered, but it was published on the BBC, that reading your phone in bed affects your sleep. So there we go. That's the biggest shock in the world. Now, I know, without wishing to get too personal, I'm going to ask our panel what they do with their phones in bed. And I think I know Barry's routine, not for reasons that we won't go into. But Barry, what's your trick with phones in the bedroom? I think we're going to have to go 18 on this particular podcast, aren't we?
My one goes, in fact, there's a revamped mode in Android now where you can set it so when you plug it in, it automatically goes into sleep mode, where you only allow through emergency a whitelist of callers like my parents or my daughters or whatever. So that's what I do. It goes on silent, just there for emergencies because we haven't got a landline anymore, much to Virgin Media's distress, but that's coming up in my next column.
It is. You've already got angry about that today. No, it's yesterday you got angry, isn't it? Right, Roche.
So,
dare I ask the same question to you?
Yeah, it's fine. It's plain vanilla response. So I have the same thing. I've got like a do not disturb from like 9 till 7. And then I have an app that plays me rain and then it switches off after now. And that's it.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, much the same. I have a sort of a go to bed mode, which restricts this, that, and the other. So there's only various people that can contact me. But I do try and use the phone not in bed for the reasons that I think you're about to mention, and so I've abandoned sort of ebooks and e-readers and gone back to paper and things like that, just to try and get away from a screen, not necessarily what it does, but the screen itself.
See, I would get away from e-readers, but they're so darn good when you're in the darkness, and your partner, for whatever reason, wants to sleep. Then you have to be thoughtful, Lee. Maybe you're just not a very thoughtful person. That's what's coming through here.
Maybe just use a very low light head torch or glasses with little LEDs on them.
You've got what's the second thing you said?
You can get those glasses with little low light LEDs on them. So, basically, illuminated reading glasses.
Hang on a second. Okay, we were struggling to get what to do for Hot Hardware of the Week this week, and you had that in your back pocket. What's going on?
Well, I'll save it for another time.
Please do. That image is going to keep me awake for some time, I think, as well tonight. Sorry, Barry, what were you going to say?
And that will cost you £10 for the image.
Okay, all right. Barry is shaking his head. I think it's basically the same point I was making, which is that the paper The light backlighting on my Kindle is invaluable. It's changed my life.
And it's you can after certain hours they change it from blue light to sort of amber light to stop that blue light problem that the phones generate.
Okay, and that's
It's true.
yeah, absolutely. It's just I wasn't quite prepared for that. Yes. Anyway, let's go back to the study, which it basically conducted in Norway, 45,000 students, aged 18 to 28. By the way, our whole research system is so flawed because it relies on students. I mean, students are not typical of the human population. Students are young and vibrant and not like the people, let's say, who appear on a PC Pro podcast. Anyway, the students are 18 to 28, and it found that their time spent on screens correlates with a higher likelihood of insomnia and less sleep overall. Now, as always, there's the causation versus the other one problem. You know, could it be that the reason why they struggle to sleep is because they're looking at their phones, or do they look at their phones because they're struggling to be asleep, etc. So we haven't quite been able to get around that particular problem, but never mind that. Researchers cautioned that self-reported survey data may also include biases. Anyway, the expert's advice is to limit screen use before bed. Who knew? Who included this story in the podcast? Was it very bad thinking? Anyway,
somebody probably got a PhD for this, Reese.
Yeah, they probably did. And anyway, okay, so the advice is limit screen use before bed, create a relaxing pre-sleep routine, and maintain a consistent sleep schedule, as it has been for the past 100 years since the advent of technology, basically, which is what's caused all these problems. Because when we didn't have lights, etc., yes, admittedly, we died when we were about 45, but we just went to bed when the sun disappeared. But because of Edison, whoever else, this is the problem that's now happening. Artificial light, blue or amber or whatever. Also, avoid caffeine or heavy meals before bedtime. And exposing yourself to natural daylight in the morning may improve sleep quality. So there we go. That's the story. Barry, are you in shock?
Kind of research that gives universities a bad name and should be instantly shut down.
The universities
Yeah.
should be shut down if they do
Yeah.
this kind of.
I'm moving to America. I think they're onto something.
Roche?
What he said.
What he said.
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
All right. And Lee, do you have anything you wish to add to this enlightening story?
I don't think there is possibly anything I could add at this point.
Okay. All right. Let us instead then move on to the nibs, not least because we have 4 this week. I know it's a revolution. People say we should change the format, and I think just this week we are shaking up because we are having 4 nibs rather than 3. So let the record show that, please. Right. Who has the first nib? I think it might be you, Lee.
It is. Scientists from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology have developed a 3D food printing system that combines AI with infrared cooking technology. Now, they use graphene heaters and to print complex starch-based foods that are cooked to a perfect shape and quality. And the AI creates intricate food patterns, offering more design and flexibility in the prep. Why would you want this? I hear people cry. Well, at the moment, this is really targeted for personalised nutrition, particularly individuals with special dietary needs, nursing homes, hospitals, things like that, where custom foods could really significantly improve the quality of life. There are further tests being done and some focus groups with the public to see if this might be a winner for a more commercial version.
Okay, that sounds like the worst thing in the universe. Barry, what's next?
This is back to AI and the Wikimedia Foundation, the people behind Wikipedia. They found that since January 2024, bandwidth used for downloading multimedia content has grown by 50%, with 65% of that traffic originating from bots. And they're basically saying that the amount of AI training models out there, especially going after media, is causing them serious problems. The interesting thing about this was that the way they handle the data. So normally if an article on Wikipedia is hugely popular, they send it out to CDNs to bring the content closer to people, and that reduces the traffic on their core servers. But of course, when these bots are just going through the entire site looking for any kind of media, they're not discriminating between what's popular and what's not. They're just hoovering up everything. And that means they were able to detect that traffic because they can see it's going to the core network rather than pinging the CDNs all the time, which is the pattern that normally happens with human readers. So they are exploring ways in which they are going to deal with this, but it sounds like they're looking at ways to potentially block these AI bots off.
Naughty bots. They must move on to... Let's go away from the bad joke, Tim. Okay, Lee, tell us what's next.
Yes. A few years ago, Sony made moves to try and conserve elements of its 30-year PlayStation history. That sounds like a long time when you think about PlayStation. They hired some gentleman called Garrett Fredley, who heads what's called the PlayStation's Studio Vault. Now, he's given an update on what they've been doing. This vault now contains game builds, source codes, prototype music artworks, and the like, to the tune of about 650 terabytes, and this equates to about 200 million files. Basically, their aim is that anything ever associated with PlayStation will be archived in the vault, and currently their earliest item is from 1994 for an RPG game called Ark the Lad. I'd not heard of it either, but apparently it was the first game to feature an orchestral soundtrack. Of course, as more games are produced, the Vault is growing, and they've got their own preservation robot called Voltron. But what they are saying is, good name, they're going to have to give Voltron some new skills, because they're finding that modern game studios are not particularly good at storing their files in a way which may be accessible in a few decades' time. Anyway, that's their problem to sort out. But they expect to blow through 1 petabyte of storage very, very soon.
Is a Peter bite like a Jane bite?
Yes, I don't know if it's Peter or Petra, Peter or H&M, possibly.
I feel like it might be petabyte, but I'm not willing to die on a hill for this.
Are we going on GIF and GIF again?
We are. No, let's move along. But I will just very quickly say that in the new issue of PC Pro, which features Barry's mighty fine feature called Hack Windows, there is a story about a new facility called, I've forgotten its name, but it's a video game storage where they've got virtually every video game magazine. They've indexed it, and they've got various flyers, etc., that have been associated with games, and they're just kind of capture it all. And these things so easily do disappear. So it's a quite interesting little read, and also potentially a very interesting resource if you are that way inclined. Roche, let's talk deal.
Okay, so this is the latest installment in the case of Rippling and Deal. You'll remember the spy and the honeypot. We talked about that.
Sorry. I'm going to have to... Can you just edit all this out? And
yeah.
Roche, so just insert this beautifully in, please,
Okay.
Lee, later. Roche, I believe you got a deal breaker. Thank you.
So you did. So
It's breaking news about deal.
Yeah, it is breaking news about Deal. So this is the latest installment in the Rippling and Deal case. We talked about the spy and the honeypot. This is the case of the spy who threw the CEO under the bus when he wasn't alone. So yesterday they Rippling published a 10-page affidavit that was written by Keith O'Brien, who's the spy at the center of this corporate espionage case. And in it, Keith O'Brien implicates the CEO of Deal, Alex Buazes. He implicates Alex's dad, Philippe Buazes. He implicates the COO, Dan, what's his name? Let's get this right. Dan Westgarth. He implicates Dan Westgarth's wife, Alba Basha. He implicates Deal's global senior director of legal, David Maleli, and one of Deal's senior in-house lawyers, a chap by the name of Asif Malik. This is all contained in the affidavit. It's well worth a read. But what did he say? So one of the things he said was that the CEO had recruited him, that he was paid 5,000, that when he contacted Deal to let them know that Rippling had uncovered the theft, that the lawyer had advised him to make a false allegation that Rippling had been involved in facilitating sanctioned payments to Russia, which he did to the Central Bank of Ireland. So he said he did it. He said he did it knowing that it was untrue, and he's withdrawn that. What else did he do?
We'll give you one more, bearing in mind this is a nib.
Okay. And he also He also wrote that it was the CEO of Deal who basically let the cat out of the bag with the honeypot trap. And it was the CEO who contacted him to ask him to search the keywords that only the bad guys could possibly have known.
Yeah.
It's a stinker of an affidavit. If I was Deal, or if I was Deal's lawyers, I would be very worried.
I'd be well. I think if I'd be very happy to have you as my advocate. What would you be? I don't know. What's the legal term? On my side, basically, Roche.
Counsel.
Counsel. Yeah, I'd be very happy with that. Okay, hot hardware of the week after that unparalleled four nibs is that the ISO FlexScan, the ISO FlexScan ELT. I want to say ELT. No, I think it might be FLT. Anyway, the point about this particular monitor. Let me dig out the link for people who are listening live on Discord. So the point about this this monitor is that it can run on as little as 3 watts, which is truly incredible. And so I think Lee, you'll probably have a better understanding of this than most normal people. 3 watts is a very low amount for a monitor, right?
Excuse me, I've just swallowed everything down the wrong hole. This will be edited out as well. Yes, it is very low wattage. Most monitors normally have basically a a lot of them are 12 volts, but you normally have to connect them with either a normal mains power lead or something that resembles a laptop power brick. But when you're dealing with these sorts of voltages, there's a lot of other options open to you.
Yeah, and it's really quite remarkable. Hopefully that link I just put in should work. It seems to have come up with a completely different monitor in the preview. But anyway, this is a 24-inch monitor, 1920 by 1080, so full HD. In terms of its characteristics, there's nothing particularly special about it in terms of quality. And it's very, very high quality from the early tests that I've done. It's only got delivered to me a couple of days ago. But I can tell you that it's basically tuned to the sRGB space, and there is a setting, as there often is for this. So if you choose sRGB, then it will lock down to 96% of that space with a pretty excellent accuracy. So for people who like this kind of thing, I don't think it's anybody, is there? Anyway, it's under 1 for the maximum. The very worst performance in Delta E is under 1, and the under 1 is effectively perfect to the human eye. So in terms of when you look at this, you can trust that the colours you're looking at are correct. Will it be as impactful a screen as the OLED panels we've all become used to? No, it won't. It peaks at about 266 candela, and it only covers at best about 74% of the DCI-P3 space. So filmmakers, they tracked the DCI-P3 space, so they want to cover 100% of that. This does 74%, but the colours do still look very good. And the other very interesting thing about this particular screen is that it comes with it's so clever. It doesn't come with a normal stand. It comes with one that actually just clips onto the back of desks, because this is designed for business rollouts. This is really designed for everyday users. So you might have 100 of these in your office, and then the power savings do start to become important, because you're taking 4 watts on average, let's say, rather than 15, 20, and that does add up. And so yeah, it's worth it does make a big difference there. But the main thing I suppose to say is that this the bolt I'm losing them. So this arm that you put it on, so it clamps to the back of your desk. And then you can just swivel it to whatever position you want. So you can bank it closer to you, you can push it to the back. But normally with these desk mounts, these arm, which are not new, by the way, you can buy an arm for pretty much any monitor. Any monitor that has a VESA mount, you can do this too, just buy an arm. But this one is particularly clever, because it doesn't require you to painfully screw from the bottom to get it into place. You just kind of twist the front, and then that kind of clamps it down. So in terms of the ease of actually using a monitor, it's the best implementation I've seen. So that's very nice indeed. Now, it does supposedly. I've not managed to convince it to do this yet, so I'm holding back a little bit. But it should supposedly. When I spoke to the guy from ISO, he said that you can actually power from your laptop to the monitor rather than the other way around. I'm not quite sure when you want to do that, but anyway, because it's so little energy, so little power, it can do that, which is a remarkable achievement if I can actually persuade it to ever do so. However, it does come with a power brick as per standard, and that does allow you to then just charge via USB-C to your laptop. And I should probably say, this has only got USB-C. This is a very forward-thinking monitor, let's put it like that. Very slimmed down, very lightweight, which obviously also helps in terms of sustainability, because you can pack these things very densely. If you lose things like a stand, and if you lose, you only have one cable, etc., etc., all these things help in terms of waste. Yes, so I think that's the main thing I've got to say. So it's only USB-C. But it does have one USB-C port if you want to charge or connect something, and it's very slim. It looks very nice. It's a very nice monitor. Lee, does this appeal to you? Because its big sell, one of its big sells, is about sustainability.
Yeah, I've just been looking at their stuff, and there's a huge recycled plastic content in there. They've got a 5-year warranty. So there's a lot to love on there. I know you said it's for businesses, but that clamp does not work for everyone at all, and so there's no other option on this.
Well, no, you can buy a stand for it if you wish to, but it's designed the way they're shipping it as standard is without a stand.
Yeah, I can see that. How much was this, by the way? Have we done price yet?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
No. That's absolutely fine. It's the correct question to ask. So I was hoping to squeeze an answer out of ISO on the price of this. I reckon it will be around the 250 mark, maybe a bit less. But and it depends obviously in terms of how many you buy. But for I think it'll be around 250, which will be expensive for if that's true, it will be very expensive for a 24-inch full HD monitor. So you're not buying this to be a bargain, but it's not going on sale until April. So right now, well, we are in April, but later in April, and so I don't have a price out of ISO yet. So your hotness verdict will have to be based upon that kind of guess at price, and also just kind of thinking about this not being really about the price. It's about the having a monitor that is only using 4 watts and producing a very nice image. You may have to trust me on that last. I could try and twist my screen round so you can see it, but I'm not quite sure what the
no, don't do that. A whole lot will go off, and then we'll have to start again, and no one frankly needs that in their life. Sorry, Barry.
I was just going to say, David Artist seems to have found a price online where it's £550, which rather changes the picture somewhat.
So I'd be very doubtful about prices that are appearing this early. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that in reality. Yeah, you found it. So David has found it on onedirect.co.uk. It used to be a pop band, but now they've moved into being a reseller. Okay, and maybe it will be more expensive than I think it's going to be. But I often find that the manufacturer prices that ISO states turn out to be significantly higher than actually what people do end up buying for them. Lee, did you have a question?
I'm just looking back a bit. You've got your 3 USB-C ports, so you've got a power brick with it, so you can power it from that. I guess with it being that low, you can also power it from Thunderbolt if you needed to as well.
Yes, you can power it off any. Yeah, you could ease. The reason for it having the power brick is so that you can actually charge other items through it, so your laptop, etc., through it. That's why they've gone for this power brick.
Yeah, it's there's still a heck of a lot of desktops out there that don't have a USB-C display output. So again, I'm just trying to think. Say it's a forward-thinking device. I'm just trying to think of barriers for people buying it. But no,
yeah.
thank you for clarifying that, sir.
That's okay. And I'm just going to address Ian Knox's point. The peak power consumption, he's saying, is 94 watts. That's misleading. Only because, no, the actual monitor will never go above, well, it's 6.3 watts at 200 watts. I haven't actually measured it at max yet. But so let's say that at max it's 8 watts. That's actually what it'll consume. So the 94 watts is including the what you're sending through to your laptop. So no, it's not 94 watts. It'll be about 8 watts. Okay, all right. Roche, any questions on this? Do you? Yeah, running back is criticising my sales pitch as normal. So just to say, I will do a proper pitch with this. So yes, okay. Is this monitor going to revolutionise the world? No, it's not. I see running back's point. However, is this a really notable breakthrough in terms of a power consumption, what we should expect the power consumption of our monitors to be? I think it is, because okay, this is just one monitor and this is just the start, but it's also, this is where we are moving. We are moving to monitors that actually think about how much power they consume, that are not losing anything in terms of the image quality. I think that's to be thoroughly applauded. So I will be voting hot. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to walk away with the PC Pro Recommended Award, but I do think it is hot, purely for the technology and the fact it's introducing it, and it's actually trying to shake up some of our expectations of what a power consumption of monitors should be. All right, Roche, hot or not?
Definitely hot. I like this. And I'm not even too bothered about the price point, because as long as it's within the ballpark of, sorry, you don't want a long thing, it's hot. I like it.
It's Barry Barry starts to think about walking his dog at about 2:05. He gets a bit kind of antsy. But
Don't blame me for this.
I'm going to blame you. That's your whole role of being on the podcast. Do you not know that? So you're the person we blame for things. Okay, all right, that's two hots. Lee, hot or not?
My apologies. Are you sorting a poll out? Hot or not? Right. Yes, that's what we're here for, isn't it? Think boy. I think
It's
you're
great
right,
having
Tim.
this insight into your mind. And where is the poll?
It's for his wife.
I was
It's a new
hot.
job. You missed it at the beginning.
This is true. Yes, my wife is dancing around it. If you don't know what that's about, then you should have joined us earlier. Hang on, hot or I can cut all this out. It doesn't matter. You know, it's only Barry's dog that's crossing its legs in the corner. So hot. Hold on. Nearly there.
I think
Post!
we found Lee's kryptonite. He can't talk and type at the same time.
I can't talk and do anything at the same time. Most of all, talk. Right. I think this is actually absolutely what you said, Tim. This is a really important monitor in terms of what it does, in terms of its energy efficiency, the way it's built, the way that ISO are offering 5-year warranty, the way that if you look on the support pages, there are certain user replaceable parts, the way that they are offering repairers like me the chance to become authorized ISO technology repairers. There is a lot to love here. This product itself, I don't particularly love at all. You know, it doesn't float my boat. I'm sure it's a wonderful thing. But the more of this sort of stuff that we have, and when you have a building full of 10,000 of these, it really does bring the energy consumption down. So if these guys can do it, so can AOC, so can Asus, so can Dell, so can the others, so can Apple. Any other monitor manufacturer you care to name. So for that reason purely, it's hot.
Okay, thank you. And I've just seen that John Honeyball said on Discord that he's voted hot, just to be nice to me. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Barry, what are you going to say?
No, just too much going against it for me. The size is too small. The resolution's, I mean, the resolution's fine for that size, but I'd want a bigger monitor, and then I think you'd end up getting two monitors, which sort of negates the power saving. I think it was Cold Tadascus who said, I don't care about the monitor, but I like the stand. I'm completely in agreement with him. I love that stand to pop up my current monitor, but the monitor itself, even with the power savings, which aren't that great in the overall scheme of things, then I'm afraid not. No, sorry.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do. So ever since when you started the vote, Lee, and I put my vote in, it was heavily.
You can't vote on there.
Sorry.
You can't vote on there.
Why can't I, Barry?
Because you voted in the studio. That's double dipping. Strike him off.
Oh, look, we need a general meeting about this.
You voted as well. Hang on, what's going on?
I vote every week. It's not in my contract.
Oh, hey, now that's cheating. I've lost out on votes across the years. I could have swung many a hot hardware by
Could you,
voting
Barry?
for my own products. I think
Could
this,
you?
This needs an internal investigation. Roche, you're in
If
charge.
you're
of this.
if you're about to suggest I've got to go back through every damn episode and count them up,
Like, I genuinely, I've been on Discord for ages, but I didn't know you weren't allowed to double dip.
No, it's this self-imposed
Right.
vote.
This is going to be a meeting right after this. I don't care how much a dog needs
That'll
a
be a
week.
first.
We're dealing with this.
All right. Well, anyway, my tactic of waiting to see whether or not the hots could catch up with the knots has been flawed, because as I talk, there is just one vote in it. Oh God, it's so agonising. If I just keep on talking, oh no, it's gone to 2 votes. Never mind. Okay, the knots carry it. I declare it on Discord. So yeah, it's a knot on Discord just by the narrowest of margins, 47% versus 53%. Man. So yeah, that is a very close vote, and I win in the studio, which is all that matters, in my head. Lee, does that count as a win or not?
no, because technically the Discord vote is the carrying vote. So we have actually got marks today in the Lemon Trophy. We have backed the wrong horse, Tim, I'm afraid.
Okay, all right, I see. Never mind. Okay, well, it's been fun. Thank you very much, everyone. I've been enjoyed taking the mickey out of every single one of you as in this podcast. Until our next podcast in a week's time, it's goodbye.